Alright, welcome back to another Unreal Engine 5 tutorial talking about blueprints, and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys part 2 of just doing some very straightforward character movements. In the last video I kind of did some basic blueprints where I adjusted the third-person character blueprint that exists inside the third-person game template a little bit. This time I thought I'd be remiss if I didn't show you guys the actual way you should be doing this in Unreal, because the last tutorial series was more of an example and not the official standard practice for doing this. So I'm going to go ahead and tie this along with that to show you guys the actual way you should be doing character movement. So if you watched from the last video, and please, if you didn't watch the last video, please go watch that. We went ahead and manipulated some of the action or some of the character movement that you can do with the third-person character. Again, to get the third-person character, you can either type in character in the search bar, and it's right here, or you can go all content, third-person character. Again, that's all content, third-person character, blueprints, and then here it is right here. All right, so you may notice in the event graph, you have these different enhance input actions, and this is actually how you should be mapping input, is through these things here. And notice that some of them return values that are different. So I just want to make sure we have this here, and then you also have a reference to the input action itself. We'll talk more about references later, but I just wanted to show that here as well. Then you have these various events. So you have triggered occurs after one or more frames of processing the specific event or the specific action that's been happened. Then you have started. This is when the event has occurred and it's right after trigger has been evaluated. So essentially either will be occurred the same frame as triggered or slightly after. Then you have ongoing. This is if triggered is still being processed. Then you have canceled. This is when the trigger may have been canceled for some various reason, like you let go of the key or whatever. And then you have completed. After the trigger has been through everything, essentially it's done and it's been completed. So if you want something to happen after it's been completed, then would be the event for that. But essentially here are the various execution pins you can use. And I'm going to show you how you can set up character movement the official way that Unreal Engine 5 wants you to do it. And I'm going to show you why you should do it this way. So it may seem like this is really complex, but it's actually not too bad. Essentially, what you're going to have, and the third-person template already has this, again, in content, third person, you have input here. Now, I'm going to draw a picture, because I think pictures are nice. Essentially, what you have is your BP character. I'm just going to do PP char here. Okay. Then you have IAs, which are input actions. I'll put IA for input actions. And then all these input actions, you can have various of these input actions, are all going to go to an input action map. So you're going to have multiple IAs, which are like super jump, sprint, look around, all of that kind of stuff. You have a bunch of IAs, whatever you want your movement to be. This is going to go to a IA map. I think it's I actually think the asset is called IA map, but essentially it's just a map that allows you to assign these input actions to specific keys and like phone things you can do or like controller stuff. And then you take this and you essentially give it to the blueprints. Now, something else I also want to discuss in this video, I'll probably discuss it in a later video as well, but essentially whenever you have a character, there's actually two primary actors that we need to be aware of. There's the character actor itself, and I'll just put char actor. And then there's the controller, which controls the character actor. Again, I'll probably touch on this in a future tutorial video as well, but essentially these two things are going to work hand in hand, where the controller is going to tell the character what it should do. Think of this as like the brain. This is the brain. So essentially the IAM, or the input actions map, is going to be assigned via the controller, and it's essentially going to then be the mechanics of how the controller controls the character. And I just wanted to write this image here because I think this kind of explains it very well, where you have input actions that are mapped to keybinds, and then these keybinds are assigned to the controller, which then tells the character how to move. So hopefully that made sense. If you have any questions on that, again, please leave those questions in the comments. Now let's look at how to set this up. The way this is set up right here, I think is a very good example, where essentially you have an input folder. Inside the input folder, here is your, actually it's called an IMC, input mapping context. So let me, my visual, it's not IAC, it's IMC, but this is like the mapper right here. And then to make one of these, you would literally just go to input here, you would right click, and then this is how you would make one if you wanted to make one. I'm just going to use the one that's already here for simplicity's sake. So here's the mapper, and then here's the actions themselves. So you have the look, the jump, and the move. So move, jump, and look. And you can actually see here, these are then being called here. And on the event begin play, you'll notice you get the controller here, and then you map them, and then here's the mapper. So on the event begin play, the controller, you don't have to worry about this logic here, but essentially the controller gets the mapper and maps these, and then this is what gives you these events. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a new action here. I'm going to create a new input action by right-clicking and going to input action. Now, whenever you create an input action, I always recommend you call it IA for input action, and I'm going to call this sprint. Cool. Okay, there we go. And let's create another one just for funsies here, and I'm going to call this super jump. So IA super jump. I'm actually going to call this super jump like that. Cool. All right, so I've created my two input actions right here. Now I'm going to go to the input map right here, and I'm going to add these two mappings. Now notice you have various things that you can add kind of here as like modifiers and other elements as well here to change how essentially like this works. So just so you know here, each one of these can have a trigger and then some modifiers that you can then pass to the character as like an event. So like if you wanted to get what axis was being pushed and all that kind of stuff, it's going to be under that. I'm not going to go super in depth into that. I just wanted to show that that's there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and now add an input action. I'm going to go ahead and grab my sprint just like that. And then here I can assign a key. I'm going to go ahead and do left shift. Boom. And for a controller, go ahead and add another bind here, and we'll go to gamepad, and we'll just do the left thumbstick down. Why not? And since it's a sprint, I'm just going to go ahead and keep that there. We'll add the super jump later. I'm going to go ahead and click save on this. All right. Now, when I go ahead and go back to my third-person character, which is under Blueprints, third-person character, I can now come up here, and this assigns the mapping, so I don't need to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click here, and I'm going to type in input action. And it's right here, so IA sprint. So I go ahead and click on that, and here it is, and then here are all the events. All right, so essentially, whenever I did trigger, if you guys watched the last video when I did left shift for this exact example, essentially, I'm just gonna treat triggered like pressed and then complete like a release. It's pretty much the same thing with some minute differences. So I'm gonna come here now, create my variables. I'm gonna call this walk speed. Again, this is gonna be a float. I'm gonna rename this to walk speed. And then I'm gonna call this another float here and call this run speed. Again, capitalizing the first letter of each word for readability. I'm gonna go to the components and get the character movement component, because this is the component that's gonna have the max walk speed. So I'm gonna grab this here and create a reference right there. Now I'm gonna grab this and drag this up. I'm gonna go back to my blueprints. Now I can't access these default values till I compile, so I could compile. I'm gonna create the walk speed, I'm gonna set to 500, and then the run speed to 1000. Boom. Now I'm going to grab the character movement component. I'm going to drag this up, and I'm going to go ahead and type set max walk speed. There it is. Boom. Okay. So, and then again, I can either drag it from here and do again set max walk speed, or I can duplicate this and drag it here. Now again, just to make sure we're aware, you need a target. Target tells Blueprint what component has max walk speed. Because currently, if you look over here, for example, like the static mesh component does not have a max walk speed. So if I use this as the reference, it would not work. So Unreal does need to know what component specifically has max walk speed as a property over here. So that's why you need to drag this in as the target. Okay, now I'm going to come here and I'm going to grab the max walk speed. This is the walk speed. And then I'm going to grab the run speed, which is this. So when the event is triggered, I'm going to have my character run. And then when my event is completed, I'm going to have my character walk. Last thing I'm going to do here is grab this again. And when the game starts, I want to set the max run speed to the walk speed, just like this. Boom, drag this here, drag this in, and there you go. So this is how you should actually be setting up character movement. I just wanted to show this so that way there was no confusion, just in case any of you wanted to get a little bit more advanced into it. But as you can see, it's very similar to what we did in the last video. Now I click play. As you can see, I'm moving, and I click shift, and I am moving a lot faster. Let go of shift, hold shift, let go of shift, hold shift, and voila. This would also work if you clicked down on the thumbstick like we saw before. And you could also assign other stuff to it as well for mobile, but I'm not going to get into that today. All right, so that's essentially how you can create character movement component. Let's look at one more example here, just to make it a little bit more complex and hopefully to help it sink in. But again, just to review here one more time, it's back to the diagram. You have input actions, which go to the IMC. My mistake on this was IMC. IMC. Sure, it's not drawing. IMC. Okay. Which then tells the brain or the controller what to do and then casts to the character. So maybe that's a little bit better of a diagram here. I'll get rid of this for no confusion. But yeah, so essentially this is it. You have input actions to the IMC, goes to the brain tells the character. All right, back over here, we're gonna go input, we're gonna go to the IMC here, and I'm gonna create a new mapping. We're gonna call this the super jump right here. This super jump will be, I already have the spacebar to something, so I'm gonna use, I don't know, the E key. Let's do, I'm through here. All right, so let's just do left control because I just don't feel like looking for stuff. Or caps lock, I'll just do caps lock. This could be whatever you want. I'll just do caps lock for simplicity. Click here again. You can add whatever you kind of want here, gamepad. We'll do it for the right thumbstick. Again, these could be whatever you want. Okay, there's our super jump. All right, save this. Now, I'm gonna go to my third person character component, right? Again, this has been assigned here. So now I'm going to go ahead and come here and go IA for input actions, or you can do input actions. Need a space. Oh, let's just do super jump instead. There we go. All right, so I want this one right here. All right, so when super jump is triggered, I want to take the character move component and I want to change the jump Z velocity here and make it a lot bigger. Okay, so that's going to be what I'm going to do. So I'm going to grab the character movement component again, either by dragging from here or by duplicating this. It doesn't matter. Boom. Now I'm going to set the jump Z velocity and duplicate this. Again, I need to tell Unreal that the character movement component has the jump Z, so I need to let that know by dragging that pin in there. When it's triggered, I'm going to set this, and then when it's completed, I'm going to set this. And then Unreal actually has a nice little blueprint pin here. which is jump. Look at that. And then stop jump. So very nice here. I can come now and grab a pin here and just type in jump. Boom. And target is character. Right now I am in the character, so I don't need to reference this because it knows self is a reference to whatever blueprint you are editing. In this case, it's character, as you can see here. So I don't need to change this. So essentially, I'm going to set the jump height. They're going to jump. And then when it's completed, they are going to stop jumping. And this is one of the reasons why I really like Unreal a lot and Blueprint a lot, because you don't have to do any custom crazy gameplay logic for this. I mean, this is pretty straightforward, if I'm not mistaken, or at least I like to think so. All right, so I'm going to go back over to my blueprint, and we're going to create a normal jump height. And then a super jump height. Boom, and I think I set it to caps lock for the jump, that's right. All right, and again, just dragging these out. So when I start the action, I'm gonna set this here. Boom, and then when I complete the action, it's gonna go back to a normal jump height, just like so. And well, there you have it, pretty much. I mean, nothing too sophisticated there. And again, last thing I'm going to do here is we're going to grab that same thing, the character movement component. We're going to set that jump Z velocity. Boom, right here. Drag this to this, drag this to this, drag the normal jump height out and get it and set it right there. Excuse me. And compile this. So there you guys go. I mean, nothing too fancy here. You can pretty much see, you know, just with the basic concepts of using floats here and setters and getters, we are actually able to create our own mechanics and make it cross-platform. One thing I think I did from the last video, which I think I need to change, is the jump count. Just got to make sure that that's not 2, because that would mess up. Yeah, whoops. That was from the last video. By the way, if you ever want double jump, you just come here and it's underneath the jump max count. I'm going to set that to 1. Okay. All right. Save this. All right. Boom. And if everything's good here, I'll go ahead and hold shift. Oh, forgot to do one thing. I need to set these variable values. Yes. All right. So the normal jump height, we want it to be like 500. And then the super jump, we'll make it like 1,000. Boom. Compile, save, click play. So now I have a normal jump height. And then I think caps lock was the mega jump. As you can see, I have a super jump. And as you can see, I can kind of use these in tandem. And if I hold shift, I can run and then super jump. And then I have my normal jump. Last but not least, I'm going to introduce the new idea of a Boolean and a branch. If you are similar or have ever used conditionals before in another language, branch is essentially your conditionals. So let's do this because I think that'll just be a nice thing, which is I'm going to create a Boolean value here, and I'm going to call this is super jumping. Is super jumping. Boom. Okay. Then I'm going to grab a branch node. So I'm going to come here, and you can either hold B on your keyboard and click, and a branch node will pop up. Or you can right click and type in branch. And here it is. So whenever this event is triggered, I actually want to check if the character is already has super jumped recently. If they have, then I don't want to do anything. But if they haven't, then I want them to be able to super jump here. So if they have super jumped, I also need to set this Boolean again. So I'm going to come here, super jumping. They currently have not super jumped. Think of it that way. They have not super jumped. Now, when they super jump, I'm going to change this here, and I'm going to set this to true, meaning that they have super jumped. Okay? So this will act as a tracker or like a way to do cooldown so that they can't constantly spam the super jump. Right? Now, whenever they stop jumping, I'm going to then set that super jump here, right? But now I'm going to create a, I think it's delay node right here. So now I want to create a cooldown timer so they can't constantly spam the super jump, right? So the super jump will be true until this cooldown is done. Now I'm going to create a cooldown float value here. Call it cooldown for super jump or cooldown super jump. I'm going to get it, drag it here, and move it right here. And we'll make this, let's say, 5 seconds. Cool. And then again, this is always in seconds, as you can see. So you have to wait 5 seconds before you can super jump again. Okay, so there you go. Some nice little conditional use here of a branch. A branch essentially only executes code based on whether a Boolean value has taken true or false, right? Conditional or control flow. This is what this is called in most programming languages. Let's go ahead and look at the result here. I'm going to go ahead and come up here to the third person map and click play. And this will now encourage the user to have to use a normal jump, because the moment they super jump, if I start clicking it again, it will no longer work, and I have to wait the entire 5 seconds here before I can use it again. So it kind of creates some nice little custom movement here for your character. And there you have it, guys. And of course, you can always adjust these variables. Like, I don't like the standard jump height here, so I'm going to make this 700. And there you go. You essentially have some nice basic custom movement, and you are also making it cross-platform by using the enhanced action system here. Alright, so that's pretty much it for this video. Again, this is character movement for beginners. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them in the comments. And as always, I will see you all in the next one.